9 things to expect in the Burning Crusade. Paladins for Horde and Shamans for the... No. It's not gonna be one of those videos, boys. You see, I've played Burning Crusade a lot, and I can tell you the more finer details that you will definitely encounter in the Burning Crusade, but might not be so obvious. So, without further ado, let's talk about the things you might not have known, because they're not as obvious, but still kind of count, as you will probably experience this to expect in the Burning Crusade. Perfect. Number 1. Motes are going to be your life. Motes of water, motes of fire, motes of mana. These are required to create some of the best craftable items in-game, especially at earlier tier levels. Think of Spellfire, Nether Strike, Frozen Shadowweave. These purples are magnificent. So basically everyone wants a piece of them motes. And you know what that means? Well, that means that a lot of locations where you have mobs that drop these items will be hotbeds for ganking. Like in the middle of Shadowmoon Valley with earth and fire elementals, the southern part of Shadowmoon Valley with the air elementals, outside of Area 52 in Netherstorm with the motes of mana, but probably the biggest ganking location in the Burning Crusade, I'd say Elemental Plateau. I know there's a bunch of people watching right now who probably got PTSD from looking at the footage and me mentioning that place. I mean, even George Corpse Grinder Fisher, frontman and vocalist of Cannibal Corpse, understands my frustration.
Stop going to the fucking Elemental Plateau ganking people! I'm trying to get motes of air!
It's basically a small area where you have a bunch of elementals that drop those motes. So yeah, get ready to be ganked a lot if you want to farm those. Or if you like World PvP, that's basically where you get to screw over people from the other faction. Just don't tell them I sent you. Number 2. Swooping ganks. Oh yeah, with the introduction of flying mounts, you will now have to not just look at the ground for enemy players, but also the skies. Make sure you keep an eye out, because as soon as people hit level 70 and get their flying mount, people will drop on top of you and try to finish you off when you're trying to farm mobs or level up. Watch the skies, people. The enemy will be there, biding their time, waiting until you pull one mob too many and they get their chance to swoop in and ruin your day. Number 3. Blood Elves named Sephiroth. Or Sephiroth spelled with a weird letter. Did you think dwarves on your classic server named Gimli were bad? Well, just wait until people can make Blood Elves. There's bound to be at least a couple of them who roll a Blood Elf because they think they look cool and edgy, and they think that naming their character Sephiroth is going to be the cherry on top of the edge cake. Also, for some reason, the majority of people who I've seen mess up in raids and dungeons in the Burning Crusade were almost always Blood Elves. I don't know why, but every time I saw someone dying because they stood in the wrong place, they ass-pulled mobs or whatever, it was almost always someone who played a Blood Elf. And maybe it's just me, but watch out for those damn creatures. Number 4. High King Malgor the Pug Breaker. High King Malgor is the first boss in Gruul's Lair, a 25-man raid instance that, based on past experiences, is quite popular for pugs. And for good reason, because if the pug group is solid, you can do this raid in no time at all, because it's a rather short raid with only 2 bosses and a few trash mobs. And there are 2 tier 4 tokens that drop here for your class, as well as one of the best catcher swords in tier 4 content, and of course Dragon Spine Trophy. You don't know what Dragon Spine Trophy is? It's basically the Drake Fang talisman of the Burning Crusade. Pretty much every melee wants this, and if you see a pug forming in World Chat with DST Res in the description, you know what time it is. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked a little bit here. High King Malgor is, like I said, the first boss in Gruul's Lair, and there's a lot of things that need to go right in order for you and your group to succeed. First up, you need a mage who can tank one of the mobs. You need warlocks to be on their A game with their banishes. You need multiple people to pull the separate mobs to their correct locations. It's basically a nightmare to ill-prepared pugs. So, if you plan on joining a Gruul's pug, don't expect too much when you're about to do this boss. On an extra note, if you're a mage and you get enough fire resistance and stamina gear to actually tank in this fight, you can probably make a decent sum of money in pugs, because mages who have that kind of gear are very scarce and in high demand for this particular raid. Number 5. Getting overrun by hardcore PvPers. Let me just explain what I mean here. The Burning Crusade will be the first time that resilience gear will be available. And you know what that means? the difference between PvE and PvP gear people will be bigger, because in Classic you could do PvE and with that gear join a battleground just fine. In the Burning Crusade, however, well, you still can, but you will drop within the blink of an eye because you have 0 resilience. And that means that if you're out in the world and you mostly do raiding, trying to fight back against Bob the no-life PvPer with his full gladiator's gear and ton of resilience will be close to undoable. And I guess that's one of my complaints about the Burning Crusade. I mean, at least in Classic both PvE and PvP gear worked, so someone who raids regularly and wants to jump into PvP doesn't have to start from square one. The gear from PvE works fine in PvP environments, and in the Burning Crusade, that difference definitely became a whole lot bigger with resilience gear. Number 6. Crow Threadstrong. Have you ever heard of this guy? No? Well, let me tell you, this guy is a psychopath. All he does is yell at the fruit vendor that her cart is in the way of his leatherworking tent. The thing is, he never checks to see whose cart it is, he never moves it himself, and he doesn't talk to the local authorities. No, he just stands there and yells the exact same thing over and over again like 30 times a day. Fun fact, the cart belongs to Granny Smith, also an NPC in Shatra, who accidentally left the cart in front of his tent. But since she's old, she probably forgot it, and based on her dialogue, she doesn't have very good hearing too. Basically what I'm trying to say is, if you're in Shatra looking for a group, or you're there while chatting to your buddies in guild, prepare to have your chat polluted with this guy's nonsense. Number 7. Getting used to your welfare's Mound Speed once again. Oh yeah, the level 40 blue mount has a speed bonus of 60%, the level 60 mount has a speed bonus of 100%, so you think the level 70 blue flying mount, which costs a whopping 800 gold, would be at least the same speed as the level 60 epic mount, if not a bit faster. And you're wrong, it's 60%. So while yes, you can fly with your basic mount, prepare the flying to go very, very slowly. So if I were you, I'd keep it for just those necessary flights and just stick to the Flight Master for the most part. Unless you want to sink in a boatload of time to get the level 70 epic flying skill, which is 280%. But you'll have to throw down 5,000 gold for that. So yeah, good luck with that stuff. Number 8. Maru the Guild Breaker. You know how people right now in Classic are getting all hyped over Naxxramas? I mean, I might have something to do with that. And I don't know why. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I just can't figure out what it is exactly. Anyway, that course will probably repeat itself when Classic goes to Burning Crusade. Because then, the people will start talking all about Sunwell Plateau, the last raid of the Burning Crusade expansion, and how there's one boss that destroyed guilds and left a path of destruction behind. What I'm trying to say is that your LFG chat, trade chat, or whatever you use, is going to be the same way for Naxxramas in Classic, but then just about Sunwell Plateau, specifically Maru, and even more specifically, pre-nerf Maru. Oh yeah, anyone who actually did that fight pre-nerf remembers exactly how hard it is and how everything else pales in its comparison. I've been there on Burning Crusade private servers where people argued and talked about Sunwell Plateau before it was released, and I have no doubt stuff like this will be there in Blizzard's official Burning Crusade servers as well. Also, Preach has made a very good video about that, and I highly suggest you check that out, as he's actually someone that raided Sunwell Plateau in retail Burning Crusade, so I'll leave that in the description below this video. Number 9. Slave Pens Heroic. If you're a caster, and you're a DPS, I hope you're ready to get acquainted to this particular dungeon, because there's one item in there that a lot of casters want, and that is Quagmiran's Eye, considered to be one of the best trinkets in-game for casters even after you stepped into tier 4 raids, and sometimes even higher than that. If I had $1 for every time I saw someone forming a Slave Pens group and they had this trinket reserved, and $1 I joined a Slave Pens heroic run and one of the Caspers whispering me if I needed the eye, I could probably buy myself a penthouse in Hollywood. Yeah, probably not, but all kidding aside, while melees have their Dragon Spine trophy, casters have their Quagmiran's Eye. I remember doing Slave Pens Heroic and the party would be flooded with people who had way better gear than the gear that would drop from this particular dungeon, apart from the eye. The hype around that trinket was and still is real, and for good reason, because it's a very good trinket. So, don't say I didn't warn ya, because if you're a DPS caster, I hope you like the look of this instance a lot, because chances are this is going to be your second home. And there you go, folks, 9 not so obvious things to expect in the Burning Crusade. I'm sure there's a lot more things to mention, but for now I think this is good enough. As always, I want to thank you for watching this video. I'm Hamsterwheel and have a good one.